Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so it goes with what a little bit, I think, extends what Jane was saying about, the thoughts that we have in our head. And we think, it's going to be awful, or it's going to be this, or I'm that and I'm this, or whatever. And just all the thoughts that come up. And somebody in the Zen school, and I'm sure I've heard it before, but it didn't hit me, said, "You are not your thoughts."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't believe him when he said that, by the way, but what could you speak about what that means? I mean, I guess what that means. That's my question. What does it mean? I am not my thoughts.
Yeah. So a long time ago, I did a solo retreat in a little cabin in Massachusetts, little cabin in the woods. And it was a 3-week solo retreat. And there weren't cell phones back then. That's how long ago it was. And so I knew I had to keep track of time some kind of way. And so I decided I'd keep a little journal and write down the date, because I knew the date I was going to stop. And so I wrote down the date, and then I would start scribbling, my thoughts, my feelings, what I'd seen, what I'd done, scribble, 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 scribble. And after 2 or 3 days of this, I realized that what I was doing was solidifying something that wasn't even there. It was like turning cotton candy into a rock, and that I was making something that actually didn't exist. And so I stopped doing that. So I put the date, and then I'd put one observation, like orange newt on path. And then later in the day, if I'd wondered, well, did I remember to write? Then I'd see orange newt on path. Oh, that was today, so then I'd know and keep track. So yeah, our thoughts and our feelings, they're not ours. And it was interesting, you said, thoughts in our head. That was a very interesting notion. What does that mean? Where do thoughts live? If you dissect a brain, you won't see a thought. Think about it, And so, so these they arise, and then if we let them, they just evaporate. And our emotions are the same way. In Chinese, the word is heart-mind, or mind-heart. It's not like mind and heart. The emotions and thoughts are similar sorts of objects. They arise, and then they kind of poof, evaporate. And so we're not our thoughts. Our thoughts just come and they go, and they change over a lifetime. You probably don't think the same thing you did when you were 3 years old. Nobody here is 3 years old, so okay. So our thoughts change over a lifetime, and our true nature is something that's shining and free. Also, our true nature is not just ours. Our true nature is this universal nature, this Buddha nature. We're just a vessel for it. But we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are just ephemera. When we hold our thoughts, that's when we get war. War is when people's thoughts freeze, and they see the other as the enemy instead of as their brothers and sisters. So we are not our thoughts. Okay? We have to keep a mind that is vast and wide, as vast and wide as this universe. That's really important. So thank you for your question. Could somebody turn the light on? It's a little dark in here. Are there any other questions? Yes, speak loudly, please.
So in the Heart Sutra, it talks about no birth, no death.
Yeah.
But obviously there is birth and death.
Boom.
Correct. There's babies that come screaming out into the world.
Right.
People die.
Yeah, right.
So would you talk about that line a little bit?
Yeah.
Not idea, but.
So when a baby is born, does it say, "Ooh, I'm born"? No. Baby's just what it is. You know, all of a sudden there's this transition from out of the womb to the air. And I have not, to my conscious memory, died. You know, I'm agnostic about rebirth. But I don't imagine that when people die, that they say, "Oh, now I'm dead." So yeah, it's very convenient to call some things alive and some things dead. And there's some things that you're not sure, like tardigrades. You know, they're these little tiny microscopic creatures that go into this state. If you've never heard about them, you got to look them up. They go into this state of dehydration and they look like a piece of dust. I mean, there's like nothing, there's no metabolic function going on. But you put them in a drop of water and boom, they're alive. And they can be in this state for, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, I don't know how many years. Maybe the lifetime of the universe. I don't know. You know? So how do you know when a tardigrade is dead? You don't. And there's all this, now that we can keep people, we can keep, somebody who's brain dead, but we can keep them oxygenated so that someone can take out their heart and give it to somebody else, well, there's this whole kind of gray area of, it's not like this very clear thing, like this is the front of my hand, this is the back of my hand. It's not like that. There's this very sort of gray area, which the more our technology allows us to do, the grayer and grayer it becomes, and the harder it is to distinguish life and death. So yeah, right now, everyone in this room and everyone on this screen is, well, some people are not showing themselves, so maybe they've died, but I don't think so, is what we call alive. We have metabolism, we can move, I can wave my hands around, I can nod my head, I can close and open my eyes, I can do all these things. I'm breathing, my heart's beating, unless I'm from another planet and I don't have a heart, but, so yeah, so we have these signs of what we call life. And it's very convenient. I discovered recently that I actually have a subtle form of colorblindness, and I don't know if these socks are, people in the room can see it, you guys can't. I don't know if they're brown or purple. Somebody will have to tell me if they're brown or purple, So yeah, so we have these boundaries. Here's brown, here's purple, but I don't know if these socks are brown or purple. So that's how it works. That's how language works. That's how our mind works. We make these categories, but these categories are always provisional. So yeah, we can call some things life and call other things death. But like Jane was saying, in this moment, there's no life or death. Because in this moment, there's no I. There's no I saying, I'm alive, or, oh my God, I just did. So yeah, so in this moment, all things become one. Okay? But yeah, we have to be able to function. So life, death, brown, purple, whatever. Okay, thank you for your question. Yes, another question.
I know what it's like to experience life as if I have a self. Thoughts, I'm attached to them, they're true.
Yeah, we all know what it's like to experience life as if we have a self, yes.
So my question is, can you speak to the experience of non-self? What is that like?
Everybody knows that. But then we immediately slam it shut. Everybody has experiences of being really, really, really absorbed in something with no thought of I, my, me. Everyone has that experience. But then we immediately slam the doors shut. We put it in a box. We say, oh, I just had this experience. I was really focused on blah, 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 right? So everyone already knows this. But because you can't talk about it, we put it in language and then it's gone. So yeah. And also this notion of self, it's not like we should go around, sort of floating like 8 feet off the ground, because we have no self and we're in a state of, beatific bliss. It'd be nice, but that's not how the world works. When Jane was saying about, being completely, in the moment, which is a phrase that always makes me a little uncomfortable, because this moment is actually infinite in time and space, but that's another issue. When, just being completely present, being completely awake, that doesn't mean that everything's wonderful, because sometimes, you're in a kibbutz and these guys from Hamas are coming in and doing horrible things to you and your family. Or you're in Gaza and the, Israeli Defense Force is coming in and doing horrible things to you and your family. So being in the moment doesn't mean that it's wonderful. It means that you can see what is actually happening instead of your ideas of what is happening. That's what it means, that our ideas don't run our lives, that we can say, oh, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. If the people who are suffering in wars, if they could only look at the so-called other side and see that the suffering is exactly the same, it's exactly the same suffering, then maybe they could put their weapons down and say, let's work this out, instead of, holding on to the stories and living by these stories. There's something like 120 wars or insurgencies going on in the world right now. You can look it up. Number of wars in the world, you can look that up, and it's well over 100. And it's, they're not always wars like, 2 countries, but it's, things like insurgencies and drug gangs, and there's lots of places in this planet where it's really difficult to sit quietly in a beautiful room and listen to a Dharma talk. So we have to hold that in mind. And how do we use our practice? How do we use our lives to help this world? That's really the point of practice, is not to be on this, wonderful plane of, but it's to really be open to all the joy and all the suffering, and to see where we can help somehow. And as Jane said, it's not by telling people what to do, because that usually doesn't work, but just to see where we can put the Band-Aid on, or the bandage, where we can, how we can listen, how we can staunch a bleeding wound, whatever it is, just to be there completely. That's really important. So I guess we have time for one short question, if there is one.
I have a question.
All right, Shuang.
Yeah, my question is, how do we know we are actually helping so we can continue to do that? But no, this is not being helpful, then we should stop.
We don't. That's the point. That's why we have to be awake. So if we're caught in our story and we're not observant of the effects of our actions, then there's no hope. And if we have the attitude of, I am helping you, I'm here, you're here, I'm helping you, oh, I'm so nice, that doesn't work either. So we have to be open, we have to be awake, and we have to recognize that even though we are doing our best might be counterproductive. We have to always hold a certain kind of humility, because then we're open to seeing, oh, that's not working, and then we can back off and try something else. Or maybe back off completely. This is someone else's job, not my job, Like if someone's drowning, I can't save them because I don't swim. So, to know when to back off. My teacher used to say, correct situation, correct relationship, correct function. And correct situation means seeing what the situation actually is. And correct relationship is your relationship to that situation. Like, I don't jump in to save someone who's drowning because I can't swim, okay? And then correct function is knowing the situation, knowing the relationship. How do you function in that? And always this don't know mind, always this realization that our thinking, we might have perceived the situation wrong. Our analysis of the situation might be wrong. So we just do our best. We do our best with an open mind and an open heart and a strong center. That's really important. But yeah, we don't know. We never know. Okay? And it works the other way too. Like sometimes, I know, back when I was a math professor, and sometimes I teach a class and I think, oh God, that went horribly. And then a student would come up and say, boy, that was the best thing ever. And sometimes I'd do something, I think that was the best thing ever. And then a student would say something else, oh my God, they didn't get it, So we never know. We never know. Sometimes, if Stan's not able to come to a Dharma talk that I give, he'll say, well, how did it go? And I'll say, I have no idea because I don't know, So this don't know mind is very important also. So thank you for your question. Thank you very much. And now it's time to stop.